Welcome to the show, guys. Happy Wednesday. I got a good one here for you with Jim the Maverick. We got a good one. We are talking about wide receivers, inconsistencies, should you draft, and if you do draft with caution. We're going to talk about some big names from Jamar Chase to Nico Collins to Drake London. On the show here, we got the great and powerful Jimmy. Jim, are you ready to dive in to these potentially inconsistent wide receivers, or are they inconsistent?
Yes, I am. Yeah, let's take a look at it because I think we got some interesting takes on what makes an inconsistent receiver. So
for sure, this is a very important episode because you guys are investing high draft capital in these guys, and if you do so, you want to make sure that you are aware of their inconsistencies, and we're going to talk about are they going to improve. So very important show. If you're new to the channel, smash it, tap it, slap it, hit the thumbs up, guys. It'll put you light years out of the competition just by following the channel. Turn on that bell. We do morning episodes every morning at 7 a.m. I'm going to be here. Jim's going to be here. Tim the Bald Guy's going to be here. It's going to be a lot of fun. And make sure, guys, what we're going to highlight today is another tool. So if you got the 16-round draft solution, that's great. Make sure you guys grab that. But we're also adding 16-round pluses, which is an app that Jim and I teamed up on. It's an app that he created. So we're going to show you how that works here. We're going to pull it up as we're talking about these inconsistent wide receivers because the app has all the information laid out for you. And to get the app, it's 16roundsplus.com to get the app. So Jim, let's pull up the app here and start talking about these inconsistent players. Now, if you're listening in the car, we're going to try to make this as detailed as possible for you via audio so you explain. But if you're on YouTube, you can see kind of the visual of what we're talking about. So Jim, I'm going to pull up here, the app. So we're going to take a look at the wide receivers. We got this filtered by wide receivers.
Yeah. So what we do is, all the players are ranked according to a Cuddy score. So consistency, upside, durability, depth chart, youth. These players score points based on how they rate on each of those factors. Those points are added up. That gives them a Cuddy score, and that's what you see on the left-hand side of the screen there. So, for instance, CeeDee Lamb scores 77 out of 100 Cuddy points. So he's very good. He rates very well, even if he is a little bit of a regression risk this year. I think he's still going to get a monster amount of volume. This is going to be a pass-first offense. They have no run game. So I think they're going to even have to pass the ball more this year. So he rates very well. And you can see the little green circle around his number. That means he's good to draft. He's a good player. But players, the consistency part of their Cuddy score, it's about 20% of the overall weight. So they could be they could have poor consistency and still be a recommend because it's just one aspect. But if it starts stacking up, like maybe they got poor upside and poor consistency, well, then all of a sudden that guy might be a more risky player, a guy that doesn't get the green circle around their name. And you could actually see down here, Justin Jefferson gets a red stop sign. He gets a do not draft this year. Very poor upside. He actually scores good on the consistency, but his upside is terrible. Plus he has some durability issues, mid durability, and playing with a rookie quarterback. There's a bunch of problems here. We don't like him at all. We're staying away from him. You should too. So
in a nutshell, guys, it lays it all out for you, gives you additional details. So for example, you got the Cuddy score here. It's out of 100. You got all these additional features telling you if it's a contract year, bounce back year, if it's a counselor recommend. And, he's a number one.
That's a number one receiver. All the number one receivers are marked.
So you got some depth chart information. And then on the right here is the extra consistency score. So let's just dive right into it here. So let's start with Jamar Chase because he's being drafted in the first round. His consistency score, by the way, if you guys want this app, 16roundsplus.com. We'll link it below. Get into the app. And so consistency score is very low on Jamar Chase. Now, Jim, why is that? Why did you come up with this rating in the app? How did the algorithm pick this up?
Yeah, so the consistency rating basically is a rating of how consistent was their usage in a game-to-game basis during the course of the prior season. And of course, there were multiple issues with Jamar Chase. He had injury issues. His quarterback had injury issues. They both missed multiple games. Right. So he was playing with a backup for about half the year. All this stuff really savaged his consistency score. And we know Jamar Chase is a great player. I love Jamar Chase. He's one of my favorite receivers in the NFL. And I think absolutely this year is going to be a much better year for him. Burrow's going to come in healthy. We're still waiting on that, though. He tore that ligament in his hand, his throwing hand. Still coming back from that. But I feel that Jamar Chase is going to be much better. Burrow will be healthy. Everything will be much better this year. So even though he scored poor on the consistency rating, he still is a recommend. He still scores 45 Cuddy points, which is good enough to get him a green circle, 5-star upside. The guy is, he's good enough to overcome the one negative aspect of his Cuddy score.
If
So
you're new,
that's what that comes down to.
if you're new to the channel, I created the Cuddy system years ago. It's just a common sense way and a practical thought mythology on how to draft a player. The player's got to be consistent, right? He's got to be consistently week in, week out, year in, year out. Upside, is there upside, right? Is there, is a quarterback going to throw him a lot of balls? What is the upside? Is he young? Like, how much upside does he have? And there's many factors to determine that. Depth chart, right? Durability. How high is he on the depth chart? How durable is he? And then youth. How young is he? Because we don't want the older players. So that is something I just run through my head. So we've actually laid it out in the app, and it's really just right in front of you, all laid out analytically. Over the years, people kept saying, Joe, be more analytical. That's why we brought Jim in. And man, this thing's an absolute gem. So Jamar Chase, do we trust him this year? I mean, he's got that low consistency, but is he trustworthy? I mean, he scores well everywhere else, right? He's high on the depth chart. He's young. I mean, Jim, you got to draft him. He's inconsistent though, but you got to draft him.
It's just, would I rather have another player? And in this case, when you get this app into draft mode and it sorts the players by their Cuddy score in each round, you'll find that, he's a recommend, but he's a lower rated recommend. And it's going to recommend, other players ahead of him on the draft board if they're still available at your draft pick. So that's what you're going to see there. But I think he's still a good choice. He is still a player that is good for fantasy. It's just he has those issues. And, again, Burrow, if Burrow is not able to come back from this ligament injury in his hand, that would be a big downgrade. That would be a big downgrade to Jamar. But for right now, I'm working under the assumption that both are healthy and both are going to be fine. And with that, I'm like, yes, go ahead and draft him.
Okay, let's move on. I'm just going through the app here. I see a low consistency score here on the right of a 4 for Garrett Wilson. I love Garrett Wilson. As you can see, he's a counselor recommend. He's the number 1 wide receiver on his team. Contract years coming up. Everything. He's got Aaron Rodgers coming back. He's young. He's dynamic. He's talented. Everything is good, but his consistency is low. Jim, why is his consistency low? Explain, please.
I'm going to explain it right now. Zach Wilson. That's the reason. And so again, it's a guy that I can absolutely forgive for having a poor consistency score because I know it's going to be better this year. Now, of course, Aaron Rodgers, another guy coming back from a pretty significant injury. So I'm operating under the assumption right now that Rodgers is good. He's ready to go. He will be healthy for the start of the season. He suffers a setback that would downgrade Garrett Wilson in my book, but he scores much better on the Cuddy score. He scores 61 Cuddy points instead of 46 for Jamar Chase. So he is higher on the recommend list for a player that you would want to take. And I've got no problem taking a player like this in the first round. I think he's going to be fantastic. So.
All right, my guy here, which I'm really high on in the second round, Drake London, very inconsistent, a guy that was drafted with high draft capital, bad quarterback play, and I think very logical, guys. You got to weigh out your factors. So he's got a lot of upside, he's got durability, all these things are going there, and you got to factor in, the information is there for you, like consistency is low, but you got to factor in that, yes, he can improve this year. So don't let consistency or lack of consistency, that variable affect your decision on making, not drafting him, because it is based on last year, like we said, with Garrett Wilson and Zach Wilson. So, man, don't you agree on that, Jim? It's like we can't put too much weight on the consistency.
That's true. Yeah. And like I said, for the Cuddy score, it's about 20% of the overall Cuddy score. It's up to 20 points of the 100 points of the Cuddy score that they can earn off of just consistency. So, again, these players all score very strongly on all the other aspects of Cuddy. It's just that, one poor rating, but they're still a recommend. They're still good. And what this app is saying is, like, if I have a choice between Garrett Wilson and Jamar Chase, I might take Garrett Wilson. It just kind of depends on where you are in the draft board and stuff, and who falls and what happens there. But it's just saying that Garrett Wilson, according to the Cuddy score, is a stronger choice than Jamar Chase right now. But I think they're both solid. They're both recommends. They're both green circles. I like them. They're both good. I would not be unhappy with either of these guys looking at the upside of what they have this year with better quarterback play. And Drake London's another one. Drake London is another one that did not score well on consistency, but again, playing with Ritter last year, and it just abysmal quarterback play. Now they got Kirk Cousins coming in again, another quarterback coming back from a major injury. What's the deal with this, man? There was so many injured quarterbacks last year, really hurt the wide receivers. But again, it's going to be 100% better for Drake London than it was last year as far as his role in the offense. So
we're going to go through some more players, top wide receivers that are inconsistent on paper here. But out of the ones we talked about here, based on the low inconsistencies or the low consistency score, I should say, Jamar Chase, Drake London, Garrett Wilson. I mean, all these guys are shaping up to have a better year, but who is the one you'd say you least trust out of those three particularly?
Geez, I mean, when you look at the risk of what the injury is, just the fact that Joe Burrow has that ligament tear on his throwing hand, that's a huge issue. I mean, the other guys, torn Achilles, not great, right? That is not a great situation, but those guys don't have to run a lot. They're more pocket passers. So it's, I could see them coming back better, but we're talking, all three of these wide receivers have quality quarterbacks coming in to play with them that are definite upgrades from last year. We can see that. We know that. So, I'm just going to wait and see what happens during training camp. The injury status on these guys when they get the full clearance to play in preseason and be a full participant in practice. That's what I'm looking for out of those quarterbacks. And if anything happens that reflects negatively on that, I'm going to impact the certainly the upside of that player that will drop their Cuddy score. It'll drop it. So but that's where we're at right now. That's where things look right now. So
let's keep rolling through here. Other guys showing up on the app. And this is why I love this app. And again, to get the app, go right now, 16roundsplus.com. I've linked it below. Look at the information that's right in front of us. Absolutely amazing. I mean, look at this. Debo Samuel. I'm not high on him. And I'm in the middle of a 2K buy-in league right now. And literally, Debo and Ayuk went back-to-back in round 3, which is crazy. It's like, dude, I can get Romeo Dobbs later, Jaden Reed later. I can get all these guys that are going to be wide receiver 1s, wide receiver 2s on the team for later, yet people are confused as to like who the wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 1 is in round 3, which is crazy. Like, you're wasting a pick. You're basically, taking a huge chance there. But again, I like, you can see, like, the Cuddy score is very low on Debo Samuel. I don't trust him. He's in a committee. There's like tons of options with CMC to George Kittle to Ayuk, and there's one of these guys might be even traded. They brought in Ricky Pearsall. Again, that's why the consistency is very low here, because we don't know what we're going to get. One year, he has like 10, 15 rushing touchdowns. The next year, he just completely plummets. It's crazy, man. Jim,
it is. And again, both Brandon Ayuk and Debo Samuel score poorly on the Cuddy score. They both have the red stop sign around their Cuddy score, which for me, just do not draft. Too much risk with these guys. One of them may get traded. There's a high probability. I don't think they have the cap space to pay Brandon Ayuk what he wants to get paid, and that's part of the reason why they franchise tagged him. So there's too many targets on that team. What I say with San Francisco is like 2 of these 4 players are going to have a great game. Which 2? I don't know. I don't know which 2 it's going to be, but there's just too much risk there to spend such a high draft pick. Last year, Brandon Ayuk, I think, was a 7th or 8th round pick. Fantastic. He was great for fantasy. Yeah. But this year, now you got to take him in the 2nd or 3rd round. That's nuts to me. That's just crazy. And you got CMC right up there in the top 2 rounds as well. And Kittle's not far behind. Kittle's like going like 5th round or something.
And same with Nico. Jim, I just got to dive in here because, again, Nico, you and I were talking about Dell and Nico. Dell was pretty much a 16th round pick, pretty much going undrafted. His ADP shot up a couple rounds as there was some buzz about him when we were talking about him and other people in the news when he made a special catch in offseason. But also Nico was like a value. Now, all of a sudden, like literally in this 2K buy-in league, it was like Nico round 3, it was Diggs right after, and it was Dell round 5. It was like 3, 4, and 5. These receivers are coming off. It's like, okay, you might have, there's going to be so much inconsistency. Again, we're talking about inconsistency. This is what we're talking about. Again, this mess that's going on right now between rounds, literally rounds 1 to like 4 to 5, disaster zone. And that's where the 16-round draft solution will really help you, where I lay out how to draft properly. And then the app is just going to give you that extra insight and additional information to really, really hone in and target what you want, especially if you're in those high stakes leagues, man. You really want to make sure you got both tools in your arsenal, man, because it's going to be a wild, wild year, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah. And so Nico was great for fantasy last year because he was someone you could get after round 10. He was like a late round pick. He became an every week starter. He was really, really good. But now, again, you got to pay up. His ADP is 22, second round. And they added Diggs. They still have Dalton Schultz. They still have Tank Dell. They added Mixon. Mixon's a receiving back. He's a receiving running back. It is going to be so hard to find consistency among the receivers in Houston this year just because there's so many targets. So, again, his consistency score is poor, but also his upside is poor because of this crowded receiving room, and I love CJ Stroud, but I don't think I would want to stack him with any of these receivers for fantasy outside of maybe best ball. But it's going to be a situation like San Francisco. It's going to be like there's 4 receivers. 2 of them will be good on any given week, but you don't know which 2 it's going to be. So again, he's not a good choice for fantasy. He scores poor, as poor as you can get. He gets 0. He scores 0 cutty points. Stay away.
It's crazy how guilty I'm feeling, man. In this 2K buy-in league, I literally just drafted Dobbs, and I think it was round 11 or 12 or something like that. And I'm like sitting there going, man, he could be the one. I don't like this pick. I want a true one. But like, I shouldn't feel bad at all because I got him in the 12th round. But yet people are having this feeling of like, oh man, like, I got Nico round 2. I got Diggs round 3. I got Dell round 4, whatever, one round after that even. Like, 3, 4, 5. It's like you should be feeling bad because you don't know. Like, I would feel terrible if I invested anything under a 7th round pick on uncertainty like that. I'm feeling guilty in round 10 or 12. So it's crazy, man. Like, I just wouldn't do it.
It's an easy route to a good payoff when you get later. I think one of the good examples this year of a team that you should take some chances on are the New England receivers, because again, they're all going way, way late. 12th, 13th, 14th round. You can get those guys super late. They're virtually no risk. And they could work out. I mean, there's a lot of negatives working against them with a rookie quarterback and a new offensive system, but they could be this year's Nico Collins. They could be the kind of guy that becomes an every week starter. So why not take a chance on one of those guys late and leave these early? Don't do these things early in the draft. Don't spend all that draft capital on guys like Debo or Nico or Ayuk because they're not going to be good for fantasy. They're not going to be consistent. And there's too many targets to spread around. There's too many. Yeah. So those are the 2 big issues with the quarterback. I mean, with the wide receivers, right? It's the quality of their quarterback that they're with, and it's how crowded is the receiving room. So
speaking of wide receivers, this news just broke here. Again, we record this the day before, so you guys are seeing this on Wednesday, but this came out on Tuesday. Dallas Cowboys wide receiver CeeDee Lamb isn't expected to attend the start of the team's mandatory minicamp Tuesday and seeks a new contract. So he was not seeking from yesterday. So he didn't want to seek the minicamp. He didn't want to go. So again, you're dealing with these contract issues, these divas, a lot of guys getting overpaid, a lot of guys disgruntled, guys like T. Higgins. It's a little bit of a disaster here when it comes to like contracts and like depth charts. And so we're navigating through all of this wide receiver stuff. And again, the app 16roundsplus.com is really going to help you guys get a lot of information laid out in front of you. So let's just, wrap this up here. I really want to just go through, some of these top receivers, the guys that are scoring inconsistent numbers. So we talked about Jamar Chase. He's scoring a 2 on consistency. So he's relatively inconsistent. Who else here, Jim? We got Garrett Wilson scoring a 4, and this is out of 10, correct? Out of 10?
Yeah, 4 out of 10. So that's an average, but it's it's not a deal breaker for me. Again, I think he's going to be better. Aaron Rodgers is going to make Garrett Wilson better, and so I've got no problem taking him because everything else rates so well for him. Right? Everything else is top notch, high durability, high upside, fair value. I mean, he's a guy that's I got no qualms about taking.
Yeah, yeah. Don't come to us and say, well, yeah, Joe told us and Jim told us that they're inconsistent and they scored low consistency. But take a look at the other factors. We talked about this earlier in the show. Like, don't let just the consistency score, be the deciding factor. Let that be something that it's just extra information you have on the table when you're trying to make a decision between this guy and that guy. You have this information, this valuable information at your disposal, use it. You have an extra edge. Drake London, 4 out of, inconsistent. Another guy, Brandon Ayuk, just kind of going over this here. Low consistency. Actually, Ayuk has actually got a higher consistency score here, Jim, but his value is not good, and he's lacking major upside, which we kind of explained here, right, with Debo.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, he's got other negative issues. He was rather consistent, but he's also a low volume player. He only got like 105 targets last year or something like that. And that's another issue with there's just so many receivers having to spread it out so much. There's not that much volume. He was very efficient with what he got. He was great with the efficiency. But that can drop, I mean, that's such a low volume player this early in the draft is crazy to me. I'm like, why would you risk that? Because you're really taking on a lot of risk by taking him early. Plus he might just hold out.
Devontae Adams, another guy we want to mention here. Very low consistency score, very suspect quarterback situation, lacking the upside. He's older. Durability is okay, as you can see. He's been durable. Again, not a guy that I'm really targeting this year at all. No, Adams.
I'm not either. And you can see he's got a little yellow triangle around his Cuddy score. That means he's a risky pick. He is a risky pick. This is his age 32 season.
Right.
But he rates well enough on certain things like his durability and his value is pretty good where you're getting him. But there's a lot of negatives here. There's a lot of risk with Devontae Adams, and he will, in my opinion, is going to continue to just decline. What he does this year is going to be less than what he did last year, which is less than what he did the year before. That's just the stage of his career that he is at. And there's no real help coming from the quarterback position either. So.
And Jalen Waddle, very high. You're still paying quite a bit for him. You guys should have learned your lesson last year with T. Higgins round 2, Waddle round 2, 3. These guys are wide receiver 2s, and I always aim high on the depth chart. And Waddle's another guy that I'm not crazy on.
Yeah, he doesn't score good on the Cuddy score. I mean, his consistency was good. His durability is good, which is good to see. But his upside is poor because he's playing behind Tyreek Hill. Yeah, he's the number 2, way behind. He plays way behind Hill as far as targets go. I mean, Hill got like 170 targets, and I think Waddle got like 110. Actually, I can look here. How many targets did he get last year?
Yeah, I think
he hasn't gotten the targets since Hill joined the team. 107 targets last year.
Yeah, not good. And then DJ Moore, another one we want to add here. Very bad Cuddy score. Again, it's up to you. This is what I mean. Get the app and just go in and dive in, look at these stats. And I didn't go into draft mode, but there's actually a draft mode here, and you actually set it, and it doesn't like sync in live with your draft. But can you explain this? Because some people say, well, how do I sync it with my draft? But there's so many platforms it doesn't actually sync with your draft. But how does it work? Pretty much draft mode.
It's just like you keep it on the screen when you this thing compresses down to the width of your phone. Like you can have it on your phone while you're in a live draft, and it just makes recommendations and suggestions for what players you should target on what rounds. Because the draft mode breaks it down, size of your league, your draft position, and gives you customized recommendations for each round based on what players are available at each point of the draft. So that's very handy, and it also gives you the heads up that if there's a player that might not make it to round 5, you'll see him on round 4 as a reach, but that's because he's going to be a long shot on the next round. So if you want him, I should target him a round early. I should go for him here. And so that really helps. I see you put it up. So you see there's a little shotgun that appears on some players. Those are long shots. Those are guys that may or may not make it to that pick. This is round 3. of a 12-team league picking
All right, so
eighth, right?
this
That's
is
what we're
round
looking
two.
at.
No, this is actually makes sense. So this is a round 2, right? Pick
Okay.
17. So I like Drake London in round 2, for example. And what we're saying is if ever we're coming back, it's a long shot that he falls there. And yes, Drake London is coming off like early round 2. So it makes sense because you are the 8th pick. So you're mid round 2. So it absolutely makes sense. So it lines up with where these players are coming. So Malik Neighbors, you could pretty much almost easily, based at the current ADP, get Malik Neighbors mid round 2. So it does update. We update this, but you're going to have all the information. See, if you want Stephon Diggs in round 2, you could take them, but you can have the little hands here, little creepy hands. They're showing it's a reach. So you guys, very easy to follow as an additional tool that's really going to help you guys get a major advantage over the competition, man. It really is. So to wrap this up, Jim, I mean, it's just about like taking all the factors in: consistency, upside, durability, depth, and youth, and making an educated decision, right? And consistency plays a factor, but it's not the entire thing. But we really want to highlight guys that we don't like, guys like Nico Collins, guys like Ayuk, guys like Deebo Samuel, guys like Stephon Diggs that are coming off early. You want to go for those guys that are higher on the depth chart, that are, there's a big gap between that wide receiver and the wide receiver behind him. It's that simple, man. It's not that complicated.
Yeah, absolutely. So I invite you guys to go to check out the app. Go to 16roundsplus.com. You can sign in with a free account, get access to a free limited version of the app, but you can see like the top 36 players on there, look at all their ratings and everything, and all the various things that this app is designed to show you, to help you out. Again, it's designed to help you in a live draft. Give you who are the best players, gives you alternatives, so you don't get that tunnel vision. You get focused on one player, and then that player gets sniped right before your pick, and then you're like in a panic mode because you got 60 seconds to find another player. This is going to help you just eliminate that issue, because you're like, okay, if this guy doesn't make it, then I can get this guy or this guy or this guy. It's great. It
Absolutely.
Really helps.
Well, you guys saw it. It's very user-friendly. You got all the logos, all the symbols, everything you need. So grab the 16-round plus tool. Also grab the 16-round draft solution. We've linked everything below. And I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Talk about wide receivers, consistency, guys we like, giving you guys some fantasy football draft strategy, all here on the #1 fantasy football podcast. Subscribe, smash it, tap it, slap it. We'll see you guys next video. Thanks, Jim. We appreciate it, guys. Enjoy your day.
All right. Thank you, counselor.